Hey everyone! Today I decided to start a mini-series about Python or Python programming. So this channel is called Automation Avenue and it would be very difficult to automate anything without basic programming skills. But don't worry, you don't need any previous programming experience. We will go through the basics so we can start automating stuff in no time and you can start it from scratch. So the most basic question we could ask is, what even programming language is? Or let's go even further, what is a language at all? So language is a method for humans to communicate. We invented those things called words, and we can either say them, we can write them, or we can show them like in the sign language. So human language is a way for us, humans, to communicate with other humans. And as you might have guessed, the programming language will be the way that we, humans, can communicate with our computer hardware. And that communication usually consists of some kind of instructions, because we usually expect a computer to do something for us, like calculate something or process some data. And once computer will finish that task, it will display the result on the screen for us. And we can create a simple one-line command that will do one basic thing, or we can combine many of those commands together and save it as a computer program. So that program will simply have many different instructions in one file. And that's cool, but there is one thing we didn't talk about. What we write, those instructions for our computer, it's not really a language that computer understands. Our computer can only recognize string of zeros and ones. Well, because that's how computer works. It uses electricity, and the only thing computer can recognize is electric signals. So when electric signal is on, it's equivalent to 1, and when there is no electric signal, no electric impulse, that is equivalent of 0 for our computer. But if you ever saw any computer program, it doesn't look like string of zeros and ones. It looks more like this. So what really happens, maybe if we try to go back to that human language analogy. Let's say I want to speak to a person from China. And I'm in my 40s, and I'm too dumb to start learning Chinese now, because, it's a very difficult language to learn, even for a young and clever person, let alone me. What I can do though, I can communicate already with that person from China. I just have to use translator, because both me and that Chinese guy, we both speak human language. The only problem is that it's different version of that language. So I can speak English, at least a bit, and then either we can have a person that knows both languages, so English and Chinese, and with help of that person in the middle, we can communicate with each other. So I can say one sentence, that translator, that person will translate that sentence for me, will say that again in Chinese, and then the Chinese person can respond, reverting the process. But nowadays I can even use my mobile phone with either translator enabled, or even more recently we can have AI enhanced translators that can translate my speech real time. But that was just analogy. Let's go back to the programming language. But the process is actually the same. The same thing happens when you write a program. So you write it in one version of programming languages, like Python or Java or Perl, there are many. And then whatever you write, it is being translated to another version, which is called machine code or binary code. And that's where those strings of ones and zeros you can find, because that machine code is something computer understands, and the Python or JavaScript or other programming language is something that we should understand. So we will have, let's say, machine code and Python, and then there is a translator in the middle that translates between those two. And that's basically it. You might not even be aware of that, but you've just learned what a compiler, interpreter, low-level language and high-level language is. And no, don't rewind this video, you haven't missed anything. Let me explain. So you wrote a program. Maybe it was written in Python. And that Python programming language is called high-level language. And what it means, it's simply a programming language that is human-friendly. And it's human-friendly because it's easy for us to understand. And as you can see, it even uses some words from our daily lives, like print or break or continue, words like that. It's simply a programming language that differs a lot from the machine code that computer can understand. And that translator in the middle will have quite a lot to do, because there is nothing in our code that is even similar to that machine code. The program we write is more similar to our human language. So, because of that, that translation process will be quite involved. And that Python is that high-level language. Well, so is JavaScript or Perl or PHP, but there are also some low-level programming languages, like assembly or Fortran language. And now those high and low levels, that refers to so-called level of abstraction. And I know that's a fancy phrase, but what it really means is that low-level language will simply not differ much from the machine code. So it will be less comprehensible for us, humans, because it will look more like those zeros and ones we were talking about. And in the programming world, you will say that it has low abstraction. So what it means there is not much difference between one that computer understands and the one that you have written. And the high-level language will look nothing like those ones and zeros, means that language differs a lot from machine code. So the abstraction is high, and means that a lot of stuff has to happen in the background, a lot of processing, before it can be passed to our computer as a machine code. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And this is what takes us to compiler and interpreter. And what they are simply those translators working for us in the middle. So, just like we needed a translator that would translate from English to Chinese, that's exactly the same concept here. If I write a program, especially in a high-level language like Python, I will need that translator that will translate it for me to machine code, so computer can get it. Why do we have a choice of two, though? Why there is one called compiler and one called interpreter? And the explanation is very easy. Let's look at compiler first, maybe. So let's say somebody wrote a book in Chinese, and it's very good, so somebody else decided to translate it to English. So the process is, you take that entire book written in Chinese, you translate it to English, and only once that entire book is translated, only then you can publish it. And that's exactly what compiler does. It takes your entire program, it translates it to that machine code, and then computer can read that entire program without any further help from the compiler, because that entire program is already in a version of the code that computer can understand. Well, okay, so what is that interpreter then for? So, interpreter works more like that person who did the live translation in the conversation earlier. So that translator waited for us to finish one sentence, then translated that one sentence to Chinese, and then waited again, checking if we want to say something else. And if we did, that's when the translation happened again. So it was one sentence at a time. And that's what interpreter does. And in fact, Python will use that approach. So when you write a program in Python and then you run it, interpreter will only translate a bit of a program that is currently needed. And if a computer goes back to that interpreter saying that it needs another part of the program, then again only that portion of a program will be translated to machine code and passed to computer. So the difference between them is clear, I hope. The compiler will work much harder at the very beginning, because it will translate entire program, but that will be the only one-off operation before the program is even started by a computer. But once the compiler, does its job, the job is done, that's it. It doesn't have to do anything further. The interpreter, on the other hand, will require no or very little work at the very beginning, but then it will continuously have to translate those chunks of the programs that computer needs to grab at any specific time. So they will both translate to a machine code, but they will do it different way. And the thing is, all high-level programs will require either compiler or interpreter. For some low-level languages, it might not be needed. So the code that we write will be very close to the machine code itself, so it will not need any translation. Okay, and that's it for today. In next episode, we will install Python, and we will also write our first program in Python. So you'd better subscribe now to not miss that out. I will see you soon.